Hey everyone. So, what if I told you that the entire foundation of great leadership could be traced back to just one single ancient command? Today, we're going to dive into a model that does exactly that. It all hinges on one little word that could completely change how you see, think, and act as a leader.
And this is that word, Iqra. Now, many of you might know it as the very first command revealed in the Quran. But for our purposes today, in this leadership framework, it's something else. It's the very first principle of leadership, period. And let's be super clear about this. The framework we're looking at doesn't just say this is a principle. Nope, it's the foundational starting point. It's the absolute bedrock that all effective leadership is built on.
Okay, but here's the twist. The common translation for Iqra is just read. But honestly, that's barely scratching the surface. The real meaning, especially when you apply it to leadership, is so much deeper, so much more profound.
So let's go way beyond that literal definition. We're going to unpack what Iqra really means inside this model and see how it goes from being a simple instruction to a really powerful mental process.
Right. This is where it gets interesting. In this context, Iqra isn't about reading text. It's about perception. It's a command to actually understand what's going on, to notice the little details everyone else misses, to catch the signal through all the chaos, and maybe most importantly, to free your mind from the noise that's clouding your judgment.
And that leads us to this really simple but powerful three-step formula. The act of Iqra, which is really deep observation, is the spark. That spark leads to a state of real awareness. And only from that awareness can you get to genuine clarity. Think about it. You can't have clarity if you're not aware. And you can't be aware if you're not really seeing what's there in the first place. Which brings us to a core rule of this whole model. You have to see before you move. It's all about getting your decision-making sequence right, and that means putting vision way ahead of impulsive action.
Here's how that looks in the real world. You know, the common impulse, especially in our whole move fast and break things culture, is to just start moving, start doing anything. But the Iqra principle, it flips that script completely. It forces a pause. Because the priority isn't speed, it's clarity.
So, okay, that's the obvious next question, right? If seeing clearly is the goal, what does that actually look like? What are we supposed to be trying to see?
Well, seeing clearly means asking yourself three pretty unflinching questions. First, where are you? Really? Not what you wish you were, not what your ego says you are. Where are you right now? Second, what patterns keep repeating? You know, in your team, in your market, maybe even in your own behavior. And third, and this one's tough, what is truly missing? What's the piece of the puzzle you're not even seeing?
So how does all of this actually make you a better leader? Well, the source material uses this great metaphor. It talks about creating your leadership operating system. Think of Iqra not as an app you run, but as the core code that runs everything else.
And the very first thing it does is critical. It stops you from getting disconnected. You know, one of the biggest ways leaders fail is they just lose touch with reality on the ground. This practice is like an anchor. It forces you to stay connected to what's actually going on.
From there, it kicks off the awareness cycle. And the key word here is cycle. This isn't a one-and-done deal. It's a continuous loop of observing, understanding, and then adjusting. It makes learning and adapting a constant habit, not some special event.
So once that cycle gets going, something amazing happens. It starts to build your internal compass. When you're constantly reading the environment and yourself, you develop this powerful, intuitive sense of direction. And that compass is what helps you navigate all the uncertainty with real confidence.
So you can see how all these pieces fit together, right? The connection, that awareness cycle, the internal compass, they all feed into each other. And together, they form that unique leadership operating system, the fundamental program that quietly shapes the quality of every single decision you make.
Okay, so we've been through the theory, but the real power of this idea, where it really comes alive, is when you turn that lens around, when you apply it not just to your team or your business, but to yourself. So I want to leave you with this question from the source material, and I want you to really truly think about it. What is the last thing you read in yourself? And I'm not talking about it in an article or a book. I mean in your own habits, your own fears, your own blind spots. When was the last time you had a moment of internal Iqra? I mean, this just sums it all up so perfectly. Real leadership doesn't start with you telling other people what to do. It starts with an internal command to yourself. See, understand, notice, cut through the noise. It begins with Iqra.
And so we'll end on that thought.
If this kind of deep, clear-eyed observation is the absolute first step to getting clarity and taking effective action, what are you waiting to read? In your job? In your relationships? In yourself? The first step is right there waiting.